Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our thematic Apply AI webinar dedicated to robotics and manufacturing. These are two key sectors where AI can play a truly transformative role. My name is Andrea Hack, and I am an expert in communications with the AI office within DG Connect. And I'm pleased to be hosting today's webinar together with my colleagues from the AI office, DG Grow, and ADRA. Now, today's session will be 1 hour and 30 minutes long and will provide an overview of the role that robotics and manufacturing plays within the Apply AI strategy. Now, the Apply AI strategy was launched by the Commission in October in order to increase the uptake of AI across 10 key industrial ecosystems and the public sector. Now, today we'll be focusing on three main dimensions. First, we'll be discussing the latest advancements in robotics and the Commission's vision for how this technology can impact different sectors, from agriculture to healthcare to manufacturing. Next, we'll discuss how to move from pilots to scalable AI solutions that involve robotics and manufacturing. And finally, we'll be discussing some of the opportunities that the European Commission provides to support within development and deployment of these technologies. We'll also be discussing how the private sector can engage and also shape Europe's robotics agenda. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce our speakers who will be bringing us through these discussion points today. First, we have Cécile Huet, who is the head of unit for the AI Office's Excellence in AI and Robotics. Under the AIinEurope program, her unit launched the public-private partnership on AI, data, and robotics, and they are also co-leading the public-private partnership in manufacturing. Next, we have Szabolcs Cezaks, who is a policy officer at DG Grow, focused on supporting the uptake of advanced manufacturing technologies with a particular focus on 3D printing and robotics. Finally, we have Thibaut Jongen, who is the head of industry futures at ADRA, which is the AI, Data, and Robotics Association, which aims to drive innovation, acceptance, and uptake of these technologies across Europe. Now, today's session is interactive, so I would very much encourage you to scan the QR code, which you will now see on your screen. And via Slido, please feel free to ask any questions to our speakers here, and we will get to them during the session. Now, this will be a factual and pedagogical overview of our work to date. Unfortunately, we won't have time to get into a full debate, but I am confident that you will leave this session with a clear understanding of the elements that are most important to your work. Now, without further ado, Cécile, I wonder if you could start us off by first explaining to us what is the Apply AI promise to industry, and what should people be listening for in particular when it comes to manufacturing and robotics?
Right. Apply AI is actually to turn trustworthy AI technology into deployable solution and deployed solutions. So what we're going to do with Apply AI is to bring that technology to solve many problems we have in industry, in public sector, and so on. So it actually reflects a dynamic between two ecosystems. So we have the AI Act, which is the ecosystem that establishes trust with rules. And then you have the Apply AI strategy that builds on the ecosystem of excellence that develops the technology. And what we want to do is actually to promote this technology, improve that technology, and promote the uptake of that technology for the adoption to solve our daily problems. And what we want to promote especially is a technology which is made in Europe. It's very important for the sovereignty of Europe, of course. And today we are going to explain what we mean by physical AI, which is the AI which is embedded in robots. You see robots like humanoid robot, but also any autonomous vehicle is a robot, the drone, the autonomous car, the underwater vehicle, and so on. And they have, as you said yourself, application in many sectors. And we will delve into more the application of robotics in manufacturing, which has been used for many years, but we will bring now smart robot in manufacturing, but also AI. So software AI can also benefit the whole manufacturing sector. So these are the topics we're going to discuss.
And let me ask you, Cecile, why is AI-powered robotics such an important strategic area right now specifically? What is really the core opportunity for Europe here?
Right. So we have not waited for today to act. So robotics has always been very high on our agenda. So for instance, we have, you mentioned it as well, but a partnership, but we have created a partnership more than 10 years ago. And in that partnership with the community, we launched the largest, let's say, publicly supported funding program in the world for the promotion and the development of, already at that time, was smart robot. Of course, AI was not so much used as a word, but it was already to make robots which are more advanced in terms of autonomy and so on. What has really changed recently, so everyone has seen the transformative power of AI in our daily life, at work, and also at home. Everyone is using large language model and so on. But now we are going to see as well the same revolution for robotics. So the ChatGPT moment of robotics, as some people call it like that, because AI can really bring a transformative effect into robotics. And the fact that this improvement in the AI capability is going to be brought to the robotics field and make robots more autonomous, more also able to help us better, because you don't need a human every time to guide them. They can be more helpful in interacting intelligently with the environment, with human, in a safe way as well, because they can understand the environment, I mean, not like people, but the world based on their sensor, interpret them, and then take the necessary action to be useful. And the physical AI, then in this case, will not only be AI that you see on your phone or your computer, but we bring them into artifacts that move. These are these robots which can take any kind of shape, but this brings then a new dimension of AI. The movement is, let's say, empowered by this smart, let's say, brain that we built through in bringing AI. What is important is that this technology is going to be cross-sectorial. It can help doctor in surgery. It can help farmers in especially jobs which are short of labor. We have this also demographic needs, that we need also more support to the population. And we need, if we want to keep production in Europe, we also need to be also more productive. So the productivity is also an aspect which is important. And why is it also very important? Timely, because the rest of the world is not waiting. They're advancing very fast. So the competition is very harsh, and it's important for us to invest at scale, both for research but also deployment, to build on this knowledge that we've built for many years. And this is the moment really to not to lose the race, and then to continue our effort. And it's particularly important to keep sovereignty and limit the dependency on this technology, which is going to be used for any industry and also for every citizen. So that's the key importance of that topic.
And Thibault, I'd love to bring you into the conversation here. From the private side perspective, what do you think has been missing from Europe's robotics journey that Apply AI is aiming to solve?
Well, actually, I'd like maybe to start with a couple of words of context here, because you mentioned ADRA, which is the private-public partnership, representing or let's say making the link between the public sector and the private side. But the private side actually is pretty broad. So let's define, if I may, what the private side is, because it goes from research technology organizations, integrators, OEMs, up to end users. And when we say end users, industrialists, these are not only the ones that make the robots, but these are also the ones that actually use the robots. These are the ones that at the end are going to create value for themselves, create value for Europe, create jobs, things like this, but using the robots and using the new technologies that have been developed and mentioned by Cécile as having potentially a very large impact. So even if you talk about here robots, AI, the perspective here, the private perspective, is much broader because actually you touch about everything that is creating value. Now we focus on the manufacturing side, and I will come back to that in a second. So focusing on the end users, we've been conducting with, as ADRA, but also with the support of the AI office for, let's say, 1 year or so, important roundtables, workshops, where we actually put together all the end users, and we had quite an important uptake of a number of sizable industrial operator busy in manufacturing in Europe, from all different sectors: aerospace, automotive, equipment, pharma, medtech, etc. We put them in rooms and said, look, seeing all the convergence between dexterity, robotics, artificial intelligence, all that flexibility, which is amazing, which is incredible, what is the challenge? What are the opportunities for you as a manufacturer to uptake this, to have an impact on this? And it was really, really useful because first, there was a lot of enthusiasm in answering those questions, like, oh, finally you ask. Second, there was very quickly a big convergence and unity in the responses, which are across sectors. There were multiple things, and of course it's not the point here to go through that list, and we have a number of reports that would be available. But there were responses that were, some of them were technical, like, well, actually we need things that work. We don't need academic test case, we don't need just prototypes, we need real stuff that work because we've got real product with real customers. So it's not just playing around, it has to be, robust and sustaining or being able to do the job. Other more strategic questions were more like data. Well, it's my data. Actually, it's very variable. Everybody says, data is the new gold. Well, actually, it was really clearly expressed there in the sense that I don't want to give just my data like this and it's kind of diffused in a LLM, a VLM, a system where I don't have control anymore of what's going on with my data. Other examples were, for instance, well, we like to work with startups, but I cannot, entrust key processes in my factory to startups, which actually I'm not even sure they will still exist next year. So you have the question about, sustainability of startups, lack of funding, risk management, actually. And then other questions more about supply chain, like, autonomy. We want to make sure that we can also have suppliers in Europe, not having to go to Asia and to US, especially in the current macroeconomic context. Other issues where, well, sometimes we just have one supplier. Mm-hmm. So vendor lock-in. So we'd like to have more suppliers, but they just don't exist, or they cannot fit into the chain because usually you've got big vendors that lock the whole system. So all these were really, really useful feedback, which actually we were allowed to present that to the Commission. And I may say that a lot of the Apply AI strategy actually stems, or at least has been inspired also from what we call the voice of the end user. So basically what we did is really gathering the end users and giving them a voice. What the voice concluded, or actually voiced, is the fact that there is a big gap between technology push and market pull. There is a kind of divide where the technologies say, well, we work on stuff, but we don't know it's relevant. And then end users say, well, we'd like you to work on more representative stuff. So that's really, really what we were working on, and that's the mechanism, the tools that the Apply AI strategy is embedding, and that's what we're going to discuss more today, is really trying to address this at the short, medium, long time scale.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Cécile, another common issue that we often hear is that, Europe has a lot of excellence in research, but when it comes to scaling these solutions, this is something that's not always working. How is the Apply AI strategy focused on enhancing that and supporting that journey?
Right. Actually, in apply AI, it's more a shift. It's not completely, let's say, changing everything, but it's a shift on the way we attack the topic. As Thibaut mentioned, the technology push is usually what we've done so far, because we needed to support the development of the technology, to have a strong foothold in this technology. And then with Apply AI, what we're going to do is to pool all this development to serve the need of the end user. So what is displayed right now is on what we build. So this ecosystem of excellence that you see on the right-hand side is building the technology that needs to be there to develop and deploy somehow the technology to have AI and robotics, which is trusted. You need, to do research development to have a technology which is reliable. You need to validate concept. You need to test them, and so on. So the way we work, as also Thibaut mentioned, we work with the community. So we have partnership in the context of AIinEurope. We have two partnerships which are relevant for the context of today: ADRA, AI, Data and Robotics. So there is an association that represents this community. We work with this association. And for manufacturing, we work with Made in Europe partnership, which is represented by the association EFRA that represents the community. And they develop strategic research and innovation and deployment agenda that we use to identify the priority and the funding program for our the priority for our funding program. Then we have other type of instruments, such as the networks of excellence, that bring the best research team we have in Europe, and they join forces to advance faster on the technological development. We have one in robotics, which is called eRobin, and which is really contributing to advance robotics. Then we have the AI on Demand platform. This is a platform for the researcher. This platform helps them to share results, reuse results, and build a community around them. And on the left-hand side, you see the more, let's say, industry side of the platform, which is there to serve as a marketplace. So it will help the developer of solution to put their solution on the platform and be visible at European level, and therefore create a market for their supply and their solution. Then bringing the solution towards the deployment, we have the testing and experimentation facilities. These are infrastructure offered to the developer of AI or robotic solution, where they can really test the technology in realistic environment, industry-grade environments such as manufacturing, agri-food, healthcare, smart city and communities. And this is important to test really at scale, in-depth the technology before deploying them in hospitals or in manufacturing plant. You need to make sure that they are robust and so on. So this is what the tests are about. And then the last miles are the EDI, European Digital Innovation Hub. They're a very important actor within the Apply AI strategy, because they bring the technology which is mature and they bring it to the end user. So they help them to test the technology in their environment, to do this test before invest, so that they can then adopt the technology in a trusted manner. So these are the ecosystem on what we build for the Apply AI. So we will work now more tightly with the end user and making sure that they pull this whole ecosystem to advance faster, and making sure that all what we develop is actually meeting the needs of our end users. So we want to bring these European technology and solve the problem our industry have.
Now, as we've just heard, thanks to investments in research and innovation, Europe is well placed in AI-powered robotics. Now let's have a quick look at a few concrete examples that demonstrate this. Now, these examples illustrate a key point. Europe already has world-class research and innovation in robotics. The question now is, how can we turn this strength into systematic, large-scale deployment across industry? Szabolcs, I'd love to bring you into the conversation here. Manufacturing is broad and highly regulated with a very strong SME presence. Why does Apply AI put such a special emphasis on this?
Thanks. I would like to split my answer into three areas. First, why is manufacturing important? It's important because it's really it's a key contributor to Europe's GDP. It provides over 15% of Europe's GDP. It's also one of the biggest employer sector, employing over 30 million European citizens, and actually it also provides very high quality jobs for our citizens. It's also very important in terms of sovereignty and resilience. Thibaut, you already mentioned that we need to ensure that we have key supply chains secured, and a broad manufacturer basis is basically a basis for ensuring that key products can be manufactured domestically, and that Europe can remain resilient against global supply chain disruptions and also geopolitical shifts. And it's also actually a very, very important area for innovation. It mainly composes of SMEs to a large number, and these SMEs are usually very, very innovative and provide a first laboratory to test new products. Now, the second question is that why manufacturing is important is what is the current situation in the industrial robotics sector and in advanced manufacturing, and it's a mixed outcome, because on one hand Europe still has a very, very strong industrial robotics ecosystem, very high level of high quality research. But on the other hand, when it comes to industrial uptake of this robotics, the picture is a bit mixed. So we are stronger in terms of uptake than the US, for example, with 219 robots per 10,000 employees. But we are behind China, who has over 400 robots per employees. And this is where I think, as I say, your idea, or let's say the new idea of having market-driven and demand-driven innovation is very, very important. Now, we also looked at the other aspects to be able to compare where Europe is. For example, we looked at the market share of robotics companies around the world, together with the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And what we see is that Europe used to be very, very strong. We still are the second biggest exporter of industrial robots. But when it comes to the number of companies, robotics companies active in manufacturing, 60% of them are in China, and let's say a bit lower than 7% of them are in Europe. So here again, very strong signal that we need to intervene. We also looked at innovation through the proxy of patents. Again, here China leads with 80% of patents, Europe is under 10%. So we have to be very stronger. And we also have to see that our competitors, they invest very, very heavily, both publicly and privately, in this sector. And then how do we support the uptake? Cecil already mentioned very, very specific instruments, the AI Act and the Apply AI strategy. I would like to rather mention the broader instruments that DigitalEU, so where I work, brings. Recently we have updated two legislations. One is the Product Liability Directive, which now expands the product definition to also include AI and software-driven products, and also introduces very strict liability for these defective products, including AI-driven robots. And the machinery regulation, which will come into effect next year in January, which also introduces autonomous mobile machinery, robots, and AI-driven products, and also makes it very, very clear for manufacturers of these products, how they can enter the market, how they need to document these equipments, what are they liable for and what they're not liable for. So we hope that it will create more certainty, more clearance, and lower the barrier for the uptake of these products.
Absolutely. And I'd love to take a moment to bring our audience into the conversation here. Now we have a few questions that have come in. First for Cecile, a question from the audience on skills. For physical AI to succeed in Europe, we need people who can combine AI expertise with strong domain knowledge. For example, in robotics or manufacturing. How is the Commission addressing this need for cross-disciplinary skills?
Yeah, actually, we do have a project. We fund some project which address precisely this. Under the DigitalEUrope program, we have the AI Skills Academy that address that. So on the one hand, we want to promote let's say the knowledge about how to develop AI, how to develop the technology itself, and on the other hand, we also want to promote let's say the support to develop the skills in order to know sufficiently about the technology so that you can use it for your specific domain, such as doctors or any kind of job. So there are a number of activities from more at university in the different disciplines, but also on the job training, because you need to retrain people, and each time somehow the technology should be more and more user friendly and easy to adapt. You still need to have a minimum knowledge about how this technology can help you, but also their limitations. So that's very important to have sufficient knowledge in order to make the best use of that technology in the different sectors.
Absolutely. And Szabolcs, we have a question for you as well on regulation. So is the EU planning specific legislation for robotics, or will AI-embedded robots be regulated through the AI Act together with existing sectoral product safety rules, such as machinery regulation?
So far we are not planning to have any very specific legislation addressing only robotics, but we are working together with colleagues both within GROW and also in DG Connect to look at sectoral legislations and to ensure that they are fully aligned with the AI Act provisions. And where necessary, we look into adjusting them if necessary, but also provide guidance documents to make it easier for manufacturers and also adopters to navigate through these legislations.
Excellent. Cecile, would you like to add on that?
I forgot to mention a very important element when it comes to skills, to the question you asked before, because for on-the-job training and really, inform people about the technology, we have the European Digital Innovation Hubs, because they are located all over Europe, and they can bring to any kind of user more advanced or versed into technology, but also the less advanced in technology, such as in the agri-food sector, in the healthcare sector. So those European Digital Innovation Hubs are really there also to bring the necessary knowledge to the industry and to the user of the technology. So that's an important component of the skills building and knowledge building in Europe.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience for those questions. I'd like to encourage you to keep asking questions, and we will return to them again later on in the session. Now, returning to our agenda for today, Thibaut, I have a question for you. So the Apply AI strategy introduces a new flagship initiative for robotics, the European Robotics Catalyst. Could you explain to us in simple terms, what is the Robotics Catalyst and why is it central to scaling AI-powered robotics?
Yeah, well, I'd like to start actually with one sentence that we hear a lot, but I think it's pretty true, which is Europe is good at creating knowledge, but less good at creating value. And basically, it links also to what I was mentioning before, this kind of gap between technology push, market uptake, things like this. So part of the battery of tools, things that, the infrastructure that we try to put in place, one of them is a catalyst. And the catalyst, I would say, I would just throw a few keywords to describe it. One is alignment. It's really aligning the whole ecosystem, aligning the whole value creation chain, from academic research, low TRL, as I mentioned before, all the steps, RTOs, OEMs, integrators, up to the end users. By the way, when I mention end users, of course, let's not forget defense. It's also an end user of manufacturing. It's also a very big consumer of robotic potential. So it's really included in the end users, of course. And for the same token, everything about government aspect. So alignment, acceleration, of course, also because we want to go faster. We said that Europe is maybe lagging behind at some points, but there is still a lot of things to do. And going faster, it's important to make sure we keep our technical or technological leadership. I would say end user, of course, because it's an end user driven initiative. So it's really, really important to say that the end users are at the core of the catalyst. They are the receiving end. Of course, they are not alone. It's actually aligning the whole ecosystem, but it's making sure the end users are also included. This is really one important component that has been missing up to now, because we thought that the world would end at the robot manufacturers. No, it really has to go to the whole chain, the whole value chain. Then I would say scale and critical mass. It's also very important. It's pooling efforts together. That is under the hood of the catalyst, making sure that we can put together, for instance, what are the relevant use cases that every separate end user faces, but actually when you put them together, it creates a big need. So these are the end users case, these are the applications that we would like to put forward and to align the whole ecosystem on, not only mature technology, because of course end users are already interested in something that can already work today, but they were not aware of it, that it existed. The number of time we see that end users are kind of confronted to things that we thought, well, it's existing since a long time, but they were just not aware of it. Or they were not able to translate it into their context. So that's very important. But it's not only accelerating the uptake of existing mature available technology, it's also making sure we align the whole pipeline up to the stuff that are currently in the lab. But at least we are sure that it's not done just for the sake of the academic case. It's also with a goal in end, a value creation impact in end. Now, of course, all this has to be governed. All this is taking shape for the moment. We'll come back to that probably later in future questions. But it's important, again, to have all the actors, but driven by the end users, but also driven by the commission. So the commission will be part of this, what we call the catalyst board, end users presence, commission, and other associations. And this is something we are discussing for the moment about how do we take shape, how do we shape this one. But we like to make sure that the voice of the end user is heard in shaping the catalyst as well, because there's no point in engineering something that is not useful or that is not recognized as being impactful. Now, I'd like to add additional concepts here in the sense that since we are talking about Europe, since we are talking about multiple sectors, since we are talking about the ecosystem, actually the opportunity of the catalyst is actually to be a single block that can be seen as different perspectives. Because, for instance, it could be transnational. Of course, there are catalysts per countries. There are associations, trade associations per country. But here we talk about the ability through the catalyst to leverage every aspect of every country. So basically, it's putting all the sub-catalysts, I would say, from all the countries into a major catalyst, critical mass, making sure that the end users have potentially aspect to multiple suppliers from other countries, and making sure that innovators from one country has access to maybe use cases from other countries. So it's really one aspect of the catalyst is bringing the transnational aspect. The second aspect is the trans-vertical, because as we said, manufacturing is common to many, many different industrial sectors, automotive, aerospace, medtech, equipment, etc. So all this, actually, it's a way also to have some porosity, permeability between the sectors. Again, getting critical mass, accelerating, aligning, etc. Very important. And during the discussions we had, as I mentioned before, over the last year, it was really nice to see how much they learn from each other from different sectors, because usually they don't tend to talk together. And also it's good because they are not really with competitors, because they can share things more easily across different verticals. Third aspect, of course, is to put all the actors of the ecosystem to create a continuous and a whole value creation chain. This is the whole point, and is really making sure there is continuum, and the catalyst is just there to organize, focus, align, accelerate, and get critical mass.
Absolutely. And Cecile, I understand that under this robotics flagship, there are also several components there in order to support the development and deployment of AI-powered robotics. So could you walk us through these elements and also how they support the journey from research to real-world deployment?
Right, so maybe there is a slide to illustrate that. Yeah, great, thank you. So yeah, just to illustrate maybe a bit more in depth what Thibaut just described. So the overall flagship is this European Robotics Catalyst. So we need really to bring the community and be driven by the needs. So what do we need to do in order to serve our industrial user and public also sector user of the technology? So we have those, when you see on the right hand side, these acceleration pipeline. So from taking the needs of the end user, we will identify very strategic use cases where which will have a big impact. So in order to develop solution and have solution which are deployable for the end user, we need to identify through the value creation where are the gaps. So some of the solution might be ready to deploy, but where are they in Europe? So first of all, we can already identify those. And we will do that for key sector. We started with manufacturing, which is the most obvious one when you talk about robotics, because you already have plenty of robots in manufacturing plants, but we will do the same for agri-food and from healthcare. So first we will work with the community to develop this acceleration pipeline to find ready to market solution, but also to see what gap do we need to fill in order to bring prototype to the next level of maturity in order to solve the problem which our industry face. Then we need also to build the next generation of robots. So we still need to improve the skills of the robot. What are the skills of the robots? These are the capabilities. So a robot needs to manipulate objects with different, level of dexterity depending on the size, the load they need to carry. They need also to navigate. Some of them just are autonomous cars, so they need also to be able to navigate autonomously without crashing into things. Some of them are very small, some of them are very big. So you have also, they need to understand their environment and react to them. So take decision, have advanced perception, react real time. And sometimes we need, very detailed and fine-grained, let's say, a precision. And sometimes we need a larger scale, but they need to carry heavy loads. So different skills are needed, but some of them are common, as also Thibaut said, to different sectors. So we need to build the skills for tomorrow. And for that, then once you have defined the skills, we need to make sure that those skills actually meet the need of the community. So we will, and we can trust them. In order to do that, we will have those robot skills qualification centers. Is like a school. You go to the qualification center, at the end you take an exam to make sure that you know and you are capable of doing what is expected from you in order to do the job. And your future let's say boss will be the one from the different sectors. So agri-food will need certain skills, and then they will define which skills they need. The same for manufacturing and so on. So we will define a number of benchmark, a number of qualification that will be measured against, and then different robots will take different tests. And what is important is here that European provider of technology can bring the technology there, tested, validated, and at the end they receive a diploma and which qualify them in order to do the job. And then we can bring them to the whole pipeline and acceleration pipeline and bring them to the end user. And then we still need to build the next generation and develop, the building blocks. So we need data to build data and computing power to build the foundation model, which actually builds the brain of the robot. We need to have also agile body of the robot. So these are things we support. We also need to have integration tools in order to bring those technology in the end user environment. And so we need different type of tools, and we will also support, we are supporting the development of them. And underlying this whole, framework, we have the supporting tool, underlying tool, the testing and experimentation facilities. These are the environment where you bring the robot and you can then have this qualification center where the benchmark will be run in the environment, which is reflecting what the end user need. You have the European Digital Innovation Hub, which will help really scaling the deployment of the technology. They will bring the technology in all the regions we have in Europe so that people can test them in their own environment before really investing. So you build trust, you learn about this before really investing in that. And the right-hand side, you see also the skills here. We're not talking about the skills of the robot, but the skills of the people using the robot, as the question from the audience was before. So these are the main elements that some of them we've already started to support. For instance, the AIinEurope project, the Network of Excellence, they are developing the skills of the robot, reusable skills of the robot. So so for instance, manipulation, you will be able to use them in different type of robot for different applications. So it's very important to have these very strong, building blocks and capabilities of robot. And this is what we are working on to advance this field.
And I believe we have a video that we can show now to demonstrate this in action.
Welcome to the Brainport Industries campus. My name is John Blankendahl, Director of Brainport Industries, and today we'll take you to one of Brainport Industries' projects, AI Matters. Developments in AI and digitalization are happening rapidly in the manufacturing industry. But what can AI do for your company? AI Matters gives you the opportunity to explore that. Within the project, we offer several services that allow you to experiment with AI at a reduced rate or even free of charge. Think of production automation, quality control, shop floor planning, but also robots, cobots, and, of course, the use of AGVs. In this series, you'll discover what AI Matters can do for your company.
Hi, I'm Ruben Fokkema of AIinFlow. For companies that produce a wide variation of parts per day, we provide automation solutions, fully adaptive, for processes like identification, sorting, packaging, and quality inspection. So thanks to AI Matters, we can make this advanced AI infrastructure accessible and provide it as a service to SMEs. Our solutions don't require machine changeovers or reprogramming. And on the other hand, they also seamlessly integrate with your software and other production systems, and that way live up to a fully digitized production flow. So our solutions are not only for additive manufacturing companies. We can process an infinity of shapes, whether it's 3D printed, remanufactured, machined, or injection molded, it does not matter. We like the variation. So all our solutions are adaptive, but the power of AI especially comes back in our AInVision. AI allows us to identify parts within just a couple of seconds with an accuracy of 99.83%. So once you have all our solutions, you will benefit from workflow optimization, efficiency, and quality control. So the added value of our identification and sorting solution leads especially to workflow optimization and efficiency by automating your sorting process, or less errors in identification, or faster throughput times, or even more control over your complex processes. So our customers have high-mix small series factories. And now it are especially the versatile SMEs that have our products, but also the bigger factories that have higher volumes, they can benefit from our economies of scale.
Are you curious about what AI Matters can do for your business? Feel free to contact us or visit our website.
Now, this brings us to a critical question. Even with strong testing and validation infrastructure in place, what actually determines whether solutions can scale? Now, Thibaut, I'd love to get your perspective on this. Where do you see the biggest make or break effect in this architecture?
Well, one important point here, and maybe I'd just like to first broaden a bit things. Instead of, well, we focus on manufacturing, and we say, okay, manufacturing is one aspect, but of course here the theme of today is robotics. And robotics, by definition, I mean, at least most people understand robotics as being something physical. So what better place to start with or to start from the manufacturing aspect, because you build stuff, and you've seen on the videos, I mean, it's all about creating products. One important point that we need to add there, it's in manufacturing, you've got what is called continuous manufacturing, which is more like pipeline processing, petroleum, continuously thing, where actually you don't, or you need less robots there because it's more like turning the dials. That's what we call it discrete manufacturing, which is you build bits. And when you build bits, you actually create value by transforming the product, transforming the material, assembling things, welding, piling, assembling things. And that's the perfect place for robotics to start striving. And we usually think when we look on the videos on internet, things like this, that we're doomed, Europe is doomed because it's already been solved elsewhere. You go to China, because actually China is even more important and prolific in terms of robotics for manufacturing. And you say, well, they've solved everything. Well, not actually, because when you think about discrete manufacturing, where you've got high added value products, where you've got products that need to be high quality, because you need to guarantee to yourself, to your customer, or even sometimes to the authorities that your product is going to be compliant each time. Pharmaceuticals, aerospace, well, you cannot say, well, it's hallucinate sometimes, sometimes you let the product fall down. No, of course, you can't. Too high value, or it needs to be perfect quality. Well, the challenges are still enormous. So that's why it's not about, being sorry, Europe is lost, it's too late, the race is gone. No. Actually, there is a lot of things to still do. And that's the opportunity that we have to seize, is the fact that there is still so much value to get, so much market shares to get from European companies in manufacturing, because we are far from having solved the problem. What you see now is more like logistics. Yeah, pick and place stuff. Yeah, of course, it's easy. But when you build stuff, for 150 hours with manual work, for instance, well, even the name manufacturing comes from Latin, manufactum, made by hand. So manual work is at the heart of manufacturing. And since the last 300 years, since the Industrial Revolution, the name of the game is to automate this. But there is still a lot of things to do. When you go to factories in Europe, everywhere, there is still a lot of manual work. And as we said in the introduction, we don't have the people to work anymore. People don't want to work in factories anymore. So you've got a huge gap in workforce. So it's not even like robots are going to replace people. No, we need robots to be able to keep on creating value in Europe, to keep on creating industrial value in Europe. So the challenge is really enormous. And there is still a lot to do when we do it smarter. And that's all we try to do here with the Apply AI strategy. How can we do it smarter? How can we accelerate the impact? So, sorry, I was a bit long, but back to your question. What is key here is, for instance, interoperability. Because what you see for the moment is you get one solution by a supplier, and that's it. You cannot fit in. You have to take the whole solution. And by the way, when you start with a supplier, then you're gone for 20 years, because of course it's sticky. You cannot change the supplier anymore easily. If you start having interoperability, not only it's very important for the Robot Skill Qualification Center that Cécile mentioned, but it's also a great lever. It's a great way to make sure that every value creator can insert itself in the supply chain. And I'm a startup working on a small module. I know how to fit there because I'm interoperable. I can switch over. I can talk to different things. Actually, human beings are also interoperable. Huh? We speak English today, you know, that is our interoperability language. Huh? So we can interoperate. And of course, close to interoperation is the next step is standardization. We don't want to get there. We don't want to impose it. But of course, the challenge is by interoperability, we are making a huge step forward to get standardization, which is what we need, because when it's standardized, you can really exchange things. You can get all the players, you can get them a chance to create value in that long chain. So that's a very important point, the interoperability. So that would be like one of the big make or break. The second one, of course, is acceleration, speed, and real life impact. Again, we need to get out of the laboratory. We need to get out of the prototype phase. Back to one question was mentioned before. I mean, I would like to add the fact that domain expertise is so important, because it's not an IT challenge. It's a manufacturing challenge. It is the manufacturing that matters, and then you get new tools to get competitive, to find ways to create value without having as many workforce as you would like. But it is the domain that matters, and then the IT comes in and the AI comes in. It's not AI first and then who cares, it's going to work. No. So that's so important to get the end user's voice, because these are the ones that can grow in the system and make sure we got impact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Cécile, I'd love to bring you into the conversation here. Thibaut mentioned a lot about acceleration being really key. Could you place this timeline in the broader policy and funding context from the Commission's perspective?
Right. So the Apply AI strategy is a medium term, I would say, window. So it has been published in 25 with let's say a first window of 5 years where we want to see impact already on what we do. But it anchors a longer term and an important shift in the mindset where we want really to continue. So we will continue the effort based on what we are building today. But already now, I mean, I mentioned several times already some project that we have been funding. You have seen some. So we do have a lot to build on. But now we need to do this shift. And a number of new opportunities. Actually, tomorrow we are going to present an info day where we invite the community to learn about our funding opportunities. So this will be on the webpage of the event as well. So follow us and you can come in Brussels to listen to that. And for instance, we are going to launch in a couple of months a big project of more than 40 million euro to build foundation model for robotics. So build on data, robotics data. So it's not language data. It's not only vision data. It's the perception for the robot. And then you build this foundation model that we expect really to make a difference when it comes to autonomy, understanding, and then action. So in language, you generate text. In vision, you generate video or image. In robotics, you generate actions, you generate trajectories and so on. So this is what we are doing with this big initiative. Then we have also in the coming years, we continue reinforcing the skills of the robots. So we will have calls which really put a competitive approach to advance the capabilities, the skills of the robots in manipulation, in speed, in precision, in navigation, and so on. So this is another type of research and development we are also funding. Then the acceleration pipeline, we continue working with the community to identify the need, prioritize the most impactful, and then see which gaps are there and how we can help the community. So there will be funding and also other means to help these acceleration pipeline to shape. Then we will prepare also the next multi-annual framework program where we will fund the next generation of technology and deployment solution. And there again, of course, it has not been decided right now, but we need to build it together with the community to make sure that what we do is impactful and brings the technology to the end user. So this is why here it's really a call to the community to help us. So join forces with ADRA, with also EFRA, to define the need from the end user, to bring the technology developer, the integrator, to identify what do we have already in Europe, where are the gaps, and what can we do together in order to create the impact and solve the challenge that our industry is facing. But what will be very important in the next MFF is that we scale. So it's important to join also forces, both from the industry, the academia, but when it comes to funding, we need the Europe level, member state level, but also private investor to join forces and really make a difference. So the scale is also there from a funding perspective.
Absolutely. And building on this, Thibaut, could you also give our audience a sense of some of the roadmap milestones to be expected?
Yeah, and I will focus on the two main instruments we've been discussing, the Catalyst and the Robot Skill Qualification Centers. We don't start from scratch. It's not like we invented this yesterday and we start. No. It's actually trying to build on actually all the good stuff that has been there since many years. And as I said, we have a lot of capabilities in Europe. It's a question just to align them and make them impactful. Of course, as I said, the catalyst is important. It's end user driven. End user people in industry are usually not so patient. So we cannot just rely on the timescales of Europe. So of course, and here I'm talking about ADRA representing also the private sector. We want to have, of course, the European Commission with us on the catalyst. It's an important instrument, initiative also, let's say, supported by the Commission, but it is not a Commission-only instrument. It's very important to understand because we want to have the end user as the drivers. Of course, the input, the coordination, the scale, the risk lowering aspect, the credibility of the Commission is important, but it's an end user driven aspect that is inclusive, of course, as I said, of the different actors in the chain. So we are moving forward on this. We are defining the catalyst. We are recruiting the end users. We are defining the rules of interaction, I would say, the governance, things like this. Any input, any participation or any end user that wants to join, of course, let's discuss. But we are moving forward. That's clear. And the priority there is to identify what are the useful use cases that make sense, that have the right balance between, impact, value creation, but also realism and delivery on shorter term. One of the stuff would be just, as I said, making sure that the end users are aware of what already exists. Because there is so much things in the drawers, so much stuff that has been done, but never really completed or never really communicated properly to the end users who probably sometimes lack attention. So it's a really question, make sure that goes together. So that's one. The second one is, of course, the Robot Skill Qualification Center, which also there we would like to make use, to leverage all great instruments that are already existing, all the public infrastructure that exists, like the TEFs, the AI Matters. We saw the excellent work done at Brainport. But we like to make sure that really we can now switch and make it something that is practical, usable, interesting for the end user, which is, as Cécile said, diplomas. Basically helping the end user understand, with all the noise I get from all the suppliers that claim everything, how can I, in a qualified manner, so it's not certification, it's not about safety, it's about, of course, safety is important, but it's about, certification is about proving to the authorities that your product complies with the regulation. Qualification is proving to the customer that your product fulfills the specification and the requirement of the customer. It's not totally disaligned, but it's not the same. And of course, for the end user, the qualification is important. So basically, it's here the qualification center is to pool common needs of tasks that are common and that are useful for users. So we differentiate clearly tasks from skills. Task is what matters to the end user. They have to perform a manufacturing task, assemble, a table, things like this. It's a task. Of course, the task is made of subtasks. To assemble a table, I first need to assemble the feet, things like this. But it's a task. And then I've got the skills. The skills can be human skills for the moment, but tomorrow would be AI-driven skills, AI-driven robotic skills. So that's why the skill center are there to monitor, qualify, assess skills in order to perform tasks. So first, we need to see what are the tasks that are relevant. And that is what we call the task taxonomy. So basically, for the moment, we are having a team that is working on identifying across sectors, across manufacturers, across industries, what are the tasks? And usually, as Cecile said, it's the same task. I mean, screwing, you see screwing everywhere in the industry. Different context, size, speed, tolerances, accuracies, materials. But it's the same task, essentially. So when we see what are the tasks, we identify what are the most relevant tasks in terms of impact, in terms of speed, in terms of value creation. And then when we have identified those tasks and how you should measure them, then we can have the skills and the robotic skills center. So that's the second part. So just to sum up, first is the qualification center and user driven, and we want to move fast. Second part is the robotic skills, but there we first need to agree what are the relevant, useful, value creating tasks that are required by the end users. So these are the two things.
Absolutely. And I have one question for both you, Thibault, and you, Szabolcs. So if a large industry player, an SME, a factory manager, or a system integrator is listening today, what is one concrete message that you would like them to take away from this session, and what should they do next? Would you like to start?
It's okay, yeah. Well, just speak up. I would say speak up. Just let your voice heard. I mean, it's really important. It's really important to bring to the table the actor that was missing up to now, or at least not heard enough, which is the end user. So, yeah. And by the way, you talk about SMEs. Part of the roundtable we did that I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion. Well, one thing that was clear is also the SMEs were totally absent. Because they don't have time, because they don't have the money, because they don't have the capacity, because they don't have the capability. But it's a huge chunk of the value creation in Europe that is just missed. So what we need to do is actually not to make their life more complex, is actually to diminish the risk for them to take AI-powered robotics. So that's why the catalyst, the qualification centers for the skills, it's all measures important to diminish the risks in the eyes of the SMEs, so they would take more easily AI-powered robotics, European technology, to bring them or to give them the ability to make higher quality products, more viable products, be more efficient, increase productivity, increase competitiveness, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you are an end user and if you listen to us, please, just make your voice heard, clearly.
And Szabolcs, what would you like our audience to take away, and what would you like them to do next?
Yes, perhaps takeaways. I think I brought some bad news. Thibault brought some good news as well, that all is not lost and the race is not over by far. And the good news is also that the Commission is building on past initiatives. Now we're increasing the public support with very, very specific instruments, the Catalyst, the Skills Academy. You also mentioned 40 million euro for foundational models. I would also like to mention another instrument, a bit broader. You also mentioned the European Digital Innovation Hubs that can help small companies who want to deploy or develop digital technologies, navigate in the European single market. I would also today like to mention another one, which is a bit broader, is the Enterprise Europe Network, which is the world's biggest enterprise supporting network that can help SMEs, if we want to enter to new markets, to understand the regulatory aspects. They can also help them find partners for manufacturing, for R&D, for logistics, and it has actually offices in more than 50 countries around the world, so not only in Europe. So that's a bit broader support.
And Cecile, one common question that we often hear from companies, both big and small companies, is where do we actually plug in if we want to engage with AI-powered robotics, whether we are a technology developer or an industrial user?
Right. So as we've discussed so far, we really explain the difference between end user and developer. So for each of them, we have a specific tool, but all of them are addressed by our program, and we need to bring them even more if we want to make a difference in Europe. So ADRA, this partnership brings them all together because we need to create ecosystems that brings the developer and the end user to discuss, to share what are the needs with what the technology is able to do. So that's an important part. Now, if you are a developer of the technology, we have currently funding programs, but also the testing experimentation facilities which are there to test your technology. No, it's going to take a different shape because it's going to be validated for the end user needs. So you will be benchmarked against a specific, the specific needs of the end user industry. So it's for the other side of the coin, I would say. And then if you are a potential user of the technology, you don't really mind which kind of technology can solve your problem. You want your problem to be solved. And for that, we have the European Digital Innovation Hubs. They are the interlocutor that can guide you to the different tools that exist for you. Sometimes it's a robot that solves your problem, but sometimes there is no place for a robot in order to solve it. So that's very important to talk to professionals who can guide you to the whole ecosystem. I mentioned also the AI on demand platform. This will be a very useful tool for all the developers we have in Europe. And if their technology has been tested in this environment and get this qualification, then it's an added value because the risk is diminished. They don't need to prove what they're capable of, in the bilateral discussion. They can just show, here is what I've been qualified against, the kind of requirement I can meet, because these efforts have been mutualizing. We want to scale, and this is in offering kind of centralized facilities that every European technology provider or user can really take advantage of, that we mutualize our effort and we can speed up. But again, I would strongly encourage, like Thibaut did, both the developers but the end user to identify, to join ADRA and to raise their voice and say, okay, here are the needs. Here is how we can shape tomorrow's industry in Europe. So it's the moment to join in order to shape and develop together this progress, and also to be involved and develop them. It's not just talking, it's acting and making happen through existing already. You don't need necessarily EU funding. Indeed, we bring people to talk to each other to form this ecosystem that can already deliver a lot. And we add a layer to that in order to speed it up and scale it at European level.
Absolutely. Now, we've shared what we would like our audience to know. So I would now like to bring the voice back to our audience again. So we have a few questions that have come in. For Thibaut, from your work with end users, what is the most common blocker you see when companies try to move from pilots to real deployment?
Well, many of them, because this is really at the core of, I think, first I would say sometimes the pilot is too far from the factory, to be honest. It is still not really a pilot. The ideal pilot is actually a production line next to the existing one. So again, you don't have to underestimate the risk that end user is taking by actually switching the button and taking up the new technology. So it's really about risk management, risk mitigation. So I mentioned also in terms of the risk, well, one is new technology means usually innovators. Innovators mean small companies. Well, what's their future? So what's the risk of being a sustained business? So usually a lot of end users are just shying away from new technology because basically they have the fear that the supplier of technology is not going to exist in the future. And then the other risk is, well, usually you don't have many choices, many suppliers. One supplier that actually is not supplying just this, it's supplying everything, though, so you are kind of, locked in as in the supplier, which strategically, from a procurement point of view, from a corporate procurement point of view, might not also, of course, be the best bargaining position. Other aspect clearly is the data. Again, data, it's so important, and especially today, with everything becoming more and more digital, data is important, and for the moment, there's absolutely no clarity about If I give my data, where does it go? We hear a story like, for instance, some suppliers say, well, provide me your data for free, I will provide you the robot. Well, no, the end user says, no, actually, there must be value in my data, but how valuable is my data? And then how can we guarantee that my data is not going to be used somewhere else? Of course, this echoes a lot everything we have in the purely digital world, about trustworthiness, about data privacy, about misused data, about hallucination, about fake news. Well, you can kind of have the equivalent in all the manufacturing industry, clearly. So these are some of the aspects, and then I would say skills. Just skills. The robots don't have skills, are not skilled enough for the moment. This is, again, the big opportunity. Okay, transporting, picking up a box from one place to the other, yeah, it's a skill. But in manufacturing, you need really other skills than that. Huh? So this is really the big one. It's being reliable. It's doing things repetitively with guarantees. It's all those skills that we need to have. And again, the Robot Skill Qualification Center are the great way to start pooling those needs, so it's not every end user by themselves who have to invest in testing this with supplier A, B, C, D. No, we pull together those needs and to have qualification schools that basically deliver diplomas that are trusted. And actually, if you've got a robotic qualification skill center, it's a trusted third party. And then you may be more willing to give your data to your trusted, or to that trusted third party that will give guarantee of good use, etc., instead of just throwing it away to some suppliers. So that's another element to, again, lower the threshold and the risk.
Mm-hmm. And funny that you mentioned skills, because our next question has to do with that as well. This is an open question for whoever wants to answer it. Could you give a concrete example of a robot skill that once developed and qualified could be reused across multiple sectors?
Go ahead.
Shall I start? Yeah. Well, we got a huge list. We have a huge list, Screwing, aligning, piling, transporting, inserting, sliding. I mean, all those things are actually part of the taxonomy I was mentioning before, and you find them in every industry, in every task for every manufacturer. Basically, of course, there are some isms and there are some specific stuff like, I was discussing this morning with an end user about, pouring powder. Yeah, okay, pouring powder might be specific, but there are so many skills that are common to all industry. They are not the same context, again, not the same speed, not the same accuracy, not the same tolerance, not the same reach, not the same size, not the same, but it's essentially the same skills.
Mm-hmm.
Manipulation is definitely, when we had this discussion with the end user, you had the pharma industry, the surgical industry, and then the car industry having the same need for a manipulation. So with different specificity, but the overall skill is the same. So there are many things that we can do to advance really the capability and then derive them in the specificities of the various sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just may add, here we focus about the execution, so the let's say manipulation, creating value, but just inspecting, monitoring is already a skill. So you don't even need to have a robot executing something, because sometimes you say, look, it's too dexterous, too complex, or you need to recertify the whole production because it has been certified for something. But just the skill of actually making monitoring, observing, making sure, measuring, inspecting, it's already a huge skill that would increase tremendously. Quality of the product, ability to use variable, small batch, high variability, and to upskill workers, because it's also a way to bring people up. So people with less skills can actually, human people, with less skills can actually be rolled in production lines to do more interesting jobs, actually, because they've got help from outside about monitoring, about giving instruction, things. So these are all the skills. So skills is not just touching the product, it's also observing what's going on in the physical world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have one more question for Cécile. What is the advantage of having AI embedded in an industrial robot compared to a non-AI robot that already has learning or adaptation capabilities?
Right. So when you have a dumb robot, it is in a cage and do repetitive tasks all the time. What we want to do is to bring a new dimension. If we want to improve productivity, we need to be adaptable. And for that, you need to have this AI brought in the robot. So when the environment changes, then the robot, you need to pick an object this way, and then if now the object is put the other way around, you should understand that it's the same object and maybe you need to pull it this way. So this adaptation for things which look simple for human needs actually some AI in order to be adaptive. Otherwise, you can only do very, very simple tasks. You are only capable of manipulating the object only when it's always put at the same place. So if you really want to do something that helps a human so that the human does not need to have close supervision all the time, then you need to bring a little brain into the robot. So that's why AI is bringing to robots.
Absolutely. And going back into our regular scheduled agenda, Cecile, Apply AI puts a strong emphasis on manufacturing. What are the main priorities for AI in terms of development and deployment in manufacturing?
So we saw the importance, Xabi mentioned, how important manufacturing is in Europe and how important is our activity to make sure that we keep production in Europe. So it's important to boost our capability, and bringing the technology is there for the automation and to keep it in Europe. We can see, for instance, that using AI, you can have more flexibility in order to have, for instance, more customized design, or to have more precision in order to have the quality confirmed, or to maintain your production plan, or to optimize the production to the demand in order to, when you bring the knowledge about the future demand, then you adapt the production to the demand. So there are many, many dimensions where AI can help the manufacturing. Only the software AI can help. Of course, robotics adds a new dimension because they can act and support the worker, or then becomes more autonomous in the manufacturing plant. So that's very important, especially the flexibility, especially for SMEs, because when an SME bring a robot in the manufacturing plant, it's not to do always the same product. So they need to be easily reconfigured in order to do a different product tomorrow. So that's easy to do. You should not wait for 1 week to reconfigure your production. So these are the potential added value. And what we want to do, again, similarly to robotics, we want to have these pipelines. So we want to understand what are the most impactful use cases that we can develop with the community, and see, okay, what exists already, what are the gaps, who needs to do what in order to bring the technology and solve the problem of the end user. Already what we want to do is, like, we will have a project that will develop the foundation model for robotics. We also want to have a project, and it will start again in a few months, with the same level, 45 million euro, in order to support the development of foundation model for manufacturing. So they will be trained with data coming from the manufacturing environment, sensor that you have in the manufacturing plant, such as vibrations, the design of the object, and so on. So that's one. And we want also to develop agents, so a solution that you give the task and the system is able to adapt and then to solve it on its own. So give also a level of automation. So that's important. And we want to bring this technology to the deployment with the pipeline. And as also Thibaut mentioned, in this case, data is so important because manufacturing data has a lot of value. But we need to have access to a lot of data, so to pull data in a trustworthy manner in order to build models which will serve the community. So we have in place also a number of support actions, such as data spaces in manufacturing, that gives an environment where different industry can, in a trustworthy manner, share their data, or give access to their data so that in return they would have a model which is really strong and will serve their need. But not any single company has enough data in order to develop a strong model. This is why there is an added value in working together in order to have models that are really serving the need, and with interlocutor that you can trust. It's not giving away your data and hoping that you will find a solution for you, but really developing a collaboration among actors.
Absolutely. And Shabi, I'd love to get your thoughts on this question as well. And just to rephrase for our audience again, what does Apply AI prioritize in terms of manufacturing?
I think it prioritizes really the scale up and the connection between the market demand, to create this connection between the market demand and the innovation and the supply of technology. I'm very, very optimistic about this, let's say, bit of shift of approach, where you really interlink the different stages of innovation with the scaling up and the market driven deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Hope
Absolutely.
that in 5 years we will see.
Yeah, let's come back in
impact.
5 years and see.
Now, Cécile, we've already kind of touched on this point a little bit, but I wonder if you want to elaborate a little bit on it. Now, data pooling is a very sensitive topic for industry. How does the plan actually propose to unlock data while still protecting IP and security?
Right, this is really the crucial point, and both of you actually touch about that. So we want to, so in the plan, we want to facilitate the data pooling through these trusted third parties. So they should not be in competition, but rather serving the needs of a variety of companies. But what every company should understand is that alone they will not be able to develop those models. So there is an added value of having this trusted third party that can really have access to the data, but in a way which is secured, which respect the IP. So my competitor is not going to see my data. However, together we can have this trusted third party that will be able to develop model or delegate the building of a model to a trusted, let's say, developer. So if we really want to have solution which helps and are the top level quality solution for the manufacturing sector, it's very important that those data which are so specific to manufacturing are usable. So this needs investment as well, because the data are not ready to be used. You cannot mix any type of data in any way. So this is an investment in preparing the data, but then find a way, and this is what we are proposing also with the data space, to share it or to give access to such a data in a way that the industry owner will trust what will be done with my data. I am in control of what will be done with my data. It's not going to float through the ocean, and not even though I get security or I get assurance from the provider of the technology. Oh yes, it's not going to be used for something else. You really need to be sure that it will be actually the case. This is what we want to promote through our programs.
Absolutely. And Szabolcs, I'd love to ask you, so one big concern for manufacturers is, how do we innovate without getting stuck in compliance uncertainty? Where does the machinery regulation angle come in on this?
So the new machinery regulation, it really addresses specifically new types of machinery that includes also robotics or AI model-driven machineries, and the manufacturers of these machineries, they need to evaluate the risks that these new types of machines represent from evolving AI behavior and also unpredictable machine actions. But it also introduces this substantial modification concept, which says that if an industrial user significantly changes the machines, they become liable as manufacturers. So it's not only the manufacturer that is always liable for the actions of a machine. And it also requires a third-party notified body assessment for high-risk machinery. But on the other hand, so this all has to be a lot of administrative burden. But on the other hand, we also provide guidance together, develop within the Commission and within industrial partners to provide guidance on how to navigate these requirements. And also the Commission introduced recently so-called omnibuses. One is a digital omnibus that really specifically tries to tackle the problem or the issue of let's say over-regulation or administrative burden, and invites industrial players to identify the most burdensome administrative problems and eliminate them together. So we are now through several omnibuses, and we continue to invite, and hopefully we also work together with industrial representatives to identify the most biting issues.
Absolutely. And Thibaut, I'm wondering, how do the robotics and manufacturing agendas actually reinforce each other?
Well, as I mentioned before, of course, by definition, manufacturing, especially for discrete manufacturing, as I mentioned before, needs robots because it's about, acting on the real world. So not only reasoning, but also acting on the real world and planning and executing things. But the manufacturing is also a very good place to start from, because when you master or you can advance intelligent AI-driven robotics for manufacturing, then you can move to maintenance and inspection. Mm-hmm. It's very close actually, because maintenance inspection is like batch of one production, because each time is different. But then you can also go to healthcare, because for instance, if you can guarantee reliability of your execution in a complex sequence of steps to manufacture something, you can actually also work and operate on a human being when you need also to follow with guarantees a sequence of steps to save the person, to operate the person. So there are many, and of course I mentioned before defense, which also has a lot of manufacturing needs, not only to create the product, create the vehicles, create the fighters, the things, but also in theater sometimes. So manufacturing is actually the great point to start actually developing AI-powered robots, because it can permeate everywhere afterwards. So that's really the opportunity.
Absolutely. And as we're getting to the end of our session, we will open it up for audience questions again. If anyone has a question, please do send it in. In the meantime, I'd like to do a quick fire round, so one sentence each. What do you want stakeholders to do next in one sentence? Maybe Cecile, we can start with you and go this way.
Right. Join first with us. So we want to build something for the benefit of our European stakeholders, the industry and the public sector, but we need you to define this future. So join our effort through ADRA to EFRA. We need you for that. And let's come not in 5 years, but in few months. We need you today to help us shaping this.
Pretty much the same message. So we need to understand also not only the technical issues that you have when you want to use robots or you want to develop robots, but we also want to understand what are the broader regulatory blocking factors that make it difficult for you to grow. So we will like to invite you to come to ADRA or EFRA, or even directly contact us and let us know, what keeps you from deploying or buying a robot, what keeps you from developing a robot and selling it in different markets. Thanks.
I would say, I won't repeat the fact that, of course, you need to join ADRA, that's clear. but also, just back to the question about data. Well, isn't that the time then to invent new architecture, new AI architecture, where actually you can make sure that you can give your data without the risk? So it's actually a call for action. It's a call for innovation. That's where the field is. It's not just, being sorry about, what exists today. No, that's an open field. Well, if it's a question, if it's a big risk for the end users to share data, let's invent the right AI architecture that solves that problem. That's really what we have to do. And that's how Europe, again, can make a difference.
Absolutely. And so we have a few minutes left. So I would like to ask our speakers here, is there anything that we have not covered during this session that you really want our audience to know? I'll let you think about that.
Come tomorrow. So we have an info day tomorrow here in Brussels. The information, you will find it on the web. This is really where you can find information about our call for proposals. So it's a substantial amount of money, but it's also what is interesting is the networking effect, because we invite people to pitch their idea for a project, or if they want to join a consortium to pitch for that. There is also a matchmaking tool. There are plenty of support. So no excuse, but don't try if you don't really have an excellent proposal, because it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of our time. So if you go for it, really go for it and present excellent proposal. But in order to know more about that, so join for the info day tomorrow.
Absolutely. Szabolcs, do you have anything to share?
Nothing else. I'm very much looking forward to the info day as well, and hopefully I will see a lot of interesting proposals. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thibaut?
Well, of course, if you are end user, please, raise your hand and make sure you can share either participating to the catalyst and driving, really shaping the future, and making sure that the whole ecosystem, the whole community is geared towards solving your problem and making your life better and your activity more competitive, anchored in Europe if possible. But also if you've got tasks that you like to share, and make sure that you want to have a way to assess the supply chain and then to demonstrate through the Robot Skill Qualification Center that what they propose, the skill they propose is compliant, I would say, fulfills your need for your task. That would be this. So really call for participation, call for action.
Yeah, and not only on robotics, because often people think, okay, of manufacturing, oh, this will only be for manufacturing. We start with manufacturing because the dialogue that you have started, Thibaut, was initiated in that context. But definitely the healthcare, the agri-food, the logistics, these are super critical also sector for Europe. So that's the moment to come and speak up your needs.
Absolutely. And we have one final question from the audience that I think we have enough time for. So qualification and testing are sometimes seen as slowing innovation. How do they actually help companies deploy AI-powered robotics faster? Who would like to take this question?
Well, I would say it's not about innovation. Here we talk about impact of innovation. So if you want to have innovation that is impactful, you need to test. I mean, there's no other way. That's the only way to diminish the risk. And what we try to do is to pull the needs together so that actually you make one test and then you impact all the companies instead of repeating the test for every customer. So clearly, it's not about slowing innovation. It's about helping, accelerating the impact of innovation.
Mm-hmm. And both ways, you just mentioned from a technology developer point of view, but as you said before, from the end user perspective, they don't have to go and shop, test 50 robots. They will have diplomas in front of them to choose from.
Absolutely.
I want to add that yes, indeed, testing qualification can be a very, very slow process, and we also have the same message from the 3D printing industry that a lot of SMEs that are developing new products, it takes them too much effort to qualify and test their products or machines with each customer and client. But this is exactly the point, that if you have centralized this process, then it can really save a lot of money for these very small SMEs that develop innovative products, and also for the industrial customers.
If I could just add, again, it's important, we are not talking about certification, because certification, yes, of course, it's always long, but because you talk about safety, fundamental stuff where you need to protect and make sure that not only the people, but also the users and the community, the public, is not impacted. This is certification, but I just don't understand how you could convince a customer to take your innovation if they don't qualify your solution. I mean, it's just impossible. So testing in the sense of qualifying it's a must-have. I mean, and it can be quick, actually. It can be quick. It doesn't have to be long. Certification might be long. Qualification can be instant, as long as you can convince your customer that you fulfill their needs.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I think this is all the time that we have for our session today, but I really want to thank our excellent speakers for joining us and for providing such great insights into all of these questions. And especially to you, our audience, for joining us today, for sharing great questions, for engaging with us. And I really hope that we will all see you at Info Day tomorrow. And if you are interested in the next Apply AI webinar, it will be taking place on February 10th. So please do watch our socials for more news about this. Thank you so much for joining us today.